Hi, I'm Ross, Lifetime Natural Bodybuilder. In this video, you're going to see a full week of training from me, all of the exercises done on each day. And this week, I incorporated some German volume training into my regime, and I'll be doing that for the next few weeks just to change it up a little bit. Basically, German volume training is a very, very simple approach to training, and it serves to really jack up your volume quite quickly. So it's 10 sets of 10 with the same weight, ideally a weight that you can perform maybe 15 to 20 reps on if you were to do just one set. It was created by Charles Poliquin, this guy here, a strength coach, very renowned in his field, and I really enjoy the program. I think it's really very effective, but extremely debilitating, and it can often catch people unawares as just how hard it can be. The biggest mistake people make with German volume training is that they use a weight that's too heavy, because it feels quite easy at the start of the workout. Those first few sets, set 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes even more than that, can feel okay. But don't let that fool you, because it can get very difficult very quickly. So we'll use this as an example. This is the bench press, and I chose 90 kilos, a weight that I could probably do 15 to 17 reps on with good form. So I think that was about right. And up to about set 7, it was pretty smooth sailing. I didn't really struggle that much at all. But then 8, 9 and 10 were really, really difficult. 8 and 9, I started to feel like I was really, really struggling to get the reps out. 9, I didn't even manage 10. I think I stopped short, maybe 2 reps short. And then the 10th one, I only got 6 on my own. And then we had to use rest pause and a spot to continue the set. Now, you don't have to do that. You could just make a note of the reps that you do on each set, especially if you're training on your own on an exercise like bench press. Rather, be safe than sorry. Rack the bar and then just kind of tally them up and try and better it next week. I had the luxury of training with a training partner, so we kind of finished it off with a bit of a spot and 2 rest pauses. So it just shows you the level of fatigue that can build up. Those first sets for me were really, really easy, but that last set, it felt like I'm pushing up against a brick wall. It just wasn't moving. Simple as that. There's no way that I would have been able to finish that set on my own. So I'll probably put maybe a kilo on for next week. I may even stay the same, just to try and better that kind of 8th, 9th and 10th set. So that was the first exercise we did for the first day GVT, and the second day we prioritised 2 exercises, a seal row of sorts, so a chest supported row with the barbell, and we use the plates to basically raise the bench up so that we can increase the range of motion. If we don't raise the bench up, then you're pulling from a very short position, so you have to make sure the bench is higher, otherwise you're just not going to get the movement that you want to. If we had more plates, we'd raise it even higher, so then we could flatten the bench down. So the flatter the bench, the more you're going to focus on the lats, and the less so on the traps. As the bench starts to shift upwards, you're going to put more of the tension on the upper back, rhomboids and traps and rear delts and whatnot. So that's something to bear in mind. If you've got enough plates, you can get the bench up high enough, then by all means do it parallel to the floor, because you'll hit the lats probably a bit better. But regardless, we've got to make the best of what we've got, and I thought the exercise was pretty good. Again, using the same protocol, 10 sets of 10 at the same weight. I think I had 80 kilos on the bar, and by that last couple of sets I was really struggling to get the bar up to the back underside of the bench, which was easy on the first few sets. So then we moved on to behind the net press. We've been doing this consistently over the last few weeks instead of overhead press. I really, really like behind the net press. I think it's a fantastic exercise that unfortunately is heavily underused. Gets a bit of a bad rap. People tend to correlate behind the net press to shoulder injuries, and it's just not the case if it's performed correctly. I'd say the biggest thing to bear in mind is the width of the grip, to make sure you're wide enough so you can get the position that you want when you go down. Ideally at the bottom of the rep you want to see a right angle at the elbow joint, and you definitely don't want to let the bar or the wrist travel behind the elbows when you press from like a side view. Everything wants to be in line, you have no problems. And again, same protocol. The 10th set was very, very hard. Probably sped the reps up a little bit just to make sure I got those 10. Ideally, you want to keep the reps consistent set to set and workout to workout. But I was so close to finishing it, I just kind of, sped it up a little bit to get those 10. So the third day of training, I didn't do any German volume training. It was a traditional low volume squat session, which is in tune to what I've been doing over the past few months. It's working really, really well. I'm now up to 190 for free. That's the most that I've lifted in years, to be honest. So really, really chuffed with how that's going. I'm very close now to my prior best strength levels. I've just got to keep that momentum going. It's as simple as that, really. I think definitely by this year, if I can keep this going, I'll be able to do 220k squat, which is my goal. I'll make it happen. So yeah, just worked up to a heavy set of 3 reps. I find that's debilitating enough, and I'm improving my strength doing that, so I don't see any need to do any more. To be frank, I'm reluctant to change something just for the sake of it, if it's working. So I moved on to stiff leg deadlifts. For the last few months, I've been switching between RDLs and stiff leg deadlifts. RDLs are essentially stopping short or maybe touch and go, but keeping it moving. Typically down to your shin. I would even kind of lift the bar off from the rack for the first rep for that. Great hamstring pump. This is stiff leg deadlifts. It's a little bit different. You're essentially doing a dead start deadlift each rep with the stiff leg technique, obviously minimum knee flexion. And for this workout, I did 5 sets of 3, which is very different from what I've been doing. Typically, I've been doing 1 set, fairly intense set, as close or to failure as I can manage with good form. And I just didn't feel like I had it in me because of the prior set on the squats. It took a bit of a bashing on the lower back on that last rep. So just opted for 5 sets of 3, 160. And I'll do more volume on hamstrings later in the week, which you'll see shortly. Then I did calves, and I did GVT for calves. It's a real good exercise for something like GVT, where you can really increase the volume without being too debilitating on the body. Got a great calf pump, seated calves, 10 sets of 10, moderate weight, about 50 kilos. So after a decent leg session, move on to an arm-specific day 4 of this week of training. This is done at my client's garage. And basically what we tried to do was 20 sets biceps, 20 sets triceps over a 2-hour period. So we did 2 lots of GVT. The first superset, and we did these both in superset fashion. The first superset was incline dumbbell curl, followed by rope push out. And the rope push out was set up in such a way that the bench was the same as the incline on the curl. So it's really quick and convenient to go from exercise to exercise. I'm really fond of this exercise here. It's a nice one with the rope, very comfortable, really good for anyone that suffers with elbow or shoulder issues. It's a lot more forgiving than, say, a rope push down or an overhead extension. So yeah, we did 10 sets of 10 on that, moderate weight. It might take a session or 2 for you to get the correct weight to use on some of these exercises. There's a little bit of trial and error involved, making sure that you don't fatigue too quickly, and on the other hand, making sure it's heavy enough so that you're not, flying through the last few sets of ease. It should become difficult on those last few sets, ideally reaching failure on the 10th set or maybe even before. So the second superset here is straight bar curl and easy bar overhead extensions, and we use the same principle, 10 sets of 10. Going a little bit heavier on the curl, I decided to use some cheat reps on the last set. My elbow was causing me a little bit of trouble, and the cheat curls actually help that, because you don't really start the movement from a complete lockout of the elbow. You can see here that the elbow never really straightens. So contrary to popular belief, cheat curls can actually be quite beneficial sometimes to work through elbow discomfort. You'll find often sometimes the lightest exercises, like a preacher curl, where you're really looking to get the fullest range of motion possible, will sometimes be more painful. And I like cheat curls. I think they hit the biceps really well. Had a great pump from those last 2 sets especially. So this is session 5, the last session of this particular week, and I start off with dumbbell incline press. Just worked up to the 1 set, 45k for 8 reps. There's no need to do any volume work on this because I've already done the chest press, bench press rather, behind the neck press. So strength was down on that exercise, and that's to be expected because of the GVT. Whenever you whack up the volume, you kind of have to expect a drop off in strength short term. So just make sure that you're aware of that and scheduling the work accordingly. Sometimes it can be a bit misleading, kind of combining progressive overload work with low reps with GVT. Perhaps it would be better to schedule in like a GVT block and then move back into a low rep strength training regime. But as long as you're aware of it, I think it's fine. The two can work hand in hand. Just make sure that your recovery is good between sessions. So then move on to lateral raises, and I did do the 10 sets of 10 on that. Nice easy exercise, good for the side delts. Before moving on to one of my favourite back exercises, behind the neck pull down, immediately into front pull down. I find I just get a better mind to muscle connection when I do it this way. The pump is really, really good, and if not for the behind the neck pull downs, the front pulls just don't feel as good for me. Almost like it primes the lats for these pulls. So real good exercise. I strongly recommend it to anyone looking to improve their back training. So 8 and 8, I did 3 sets on that, moderate weight, before finishing up the week with some leg volume work. So I've already done the heavy squats, I've already done stiff leg deadlifts and GVT for calves. So now I just need to do a little bit more volume on the thighs, and I chose GVT supersets, quad extensions and hamstring curls. 10 sets of 10. On the last set there was a little bit of a longer rest period because I set up the camera, so I did a few more reps because the fatigue was nowhere near as high as it had been on the set prior. When you're doing work like this, the rest periods in between are very, very important, and your performance per set will be very sensitive to the rest periods that you use. So just try and be as consistent as you can, because an extra 15 seconds sometimes makes all the difference, and might mean, on the 8th set, 10 reps might be an RPE 9, but then set 9, if you have an extra 15-20 seconds, it might only be an RPE 8, and it's not really what you want with GVT. So after the workout, straight back home, I'm going to tuck into some spaghetti and meatballs. I've got about 600 grams of spaghetti here with 6 good quality homemade beef meatballs and a tomato sauce. So my biggest meal of the day is always after training. It's not immediately after training. My appetite peaks around an hour to 2 hours post-training. But I don't particularly want to waste that window. It's difficult enough to get the calories in each day that I'm aiming for, and using that window there where my appetite is increased helps big time. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to like it. Also check out my website. I offer online coaching exclusively for natural lifters, so if you're interested, check that out. Any questions, then put them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching once again. Stay strong.